Hello. So I guess we're lucky to be here. I was going to tell a little story. When I was in college, I played football at Brown University, and one of my good friends, Andy Martin, tried out for the New York Giants. And Andy was getting cut. Coach Parcells was calling him to the office, bring your playbook. He knew he was going to get cut. And so he goes in and he sees Bill Parcells, and Coach Parcells goes, Andy, I've got Pepper Johnson, Carl Banks, Harry Carson, and Lawrence Taylor, and I don't need you on this team. And my buddy said, Coach, I'm just glad you mentioned my name in the same sentence with those guys. And that's how I feel about being on stage today with Ted Leonsis. I mean, I think when you look at everything he's done in his life, it's just an amazing visionary. And so I'm excited to be here, Ted, with you, and congrats on an amazing...
George, I played football, too. I grew up in Brooklyn, and I played at Brooklyn Tech here, and our field was on the roof of the school. That's how, over a cage. So kind of had the same background, just probably a little different execution.
So Ted, tell everyone about Monumental Sports. Is it a sports company? Is it a content company? Is it a media company? Is it a media distribution? How would you describe it?
Well, our goal is to build the world's most valuable regional sports and entertainment company, and to do it in one of the 10 most important extended cities, Greater Washington, on the planet. And so if you're going to participate in a real consumer business, there's 10 million people in our extended market, the social responsibility that you take on is equally as high and demanding. So you end up not only building a valuable company, but an important company, and a company that holds a mirror up really to the community that it serves. And so we are a digital media platform. We own 7 teams. We're ambitious, humbly ambitious. I want to buy more teams, but I want it to be in my area. I have a lot of friends here. They're more educated, smarter, thinner, richer than I am. It was amazing to hear the previous speaker talk about buying into a team in a league that he didn't know anything about. But at least it was in his area, if you will. I will only buy a team that authentically I can say we love, we understand, and that our platform can be in service to. And so if you're not in Maryland, Virginia, or D.C., I'm not interested in the team. I will buy a piece of a team as an investor. We're big investors in esports, and Team Liquid, which is headquartered in L.A., we share that ownership with Peter Guber and some other great investors like Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan. But for 25 years, we've been talking about becoming a digital-first enterprise. And it's just now, because of the meltdown and what's happening in the RSN field, that everyone says, yes, we have to be digital first. Perhaps we're ahead of that curve because we believe that, and we really have been building our data platform, our AI platform, just everything that we do, getting ready for this great pivot, which all of sports are into. But at the same time, the venue side of the business, we own our building, has become incredibly important. As post-pandemic, we are seeing the biggest gate on any time in our history. We're having concerts, the Drake concert last month, $6 million. We're hosting professional fights. I'm an investor in Professional Fighters League, and fights are generating $5 and $6 million in gate. I remember when we first bought the Capitals, our gate for games during the regular season could be $200,000. So the venues and being able to have the teams and venues and digital distribution and bring that all together in a way that's in service to the fans, you not only build your revenues, we'll do $650, $700 million in revenues now, but that is how you get to be a good investment for your family and your partners. You have to be customer first, digital first, grow the revenues, be able to grow your revenues faster than your expenses. That's a small detail that most people who come into sports lose sight of. We're EBITDA positive. We generate cash. These can be really, really good businesses. So we want to build an important business and one that's very, very valuable.
And so, Ted, when you think about, you're an early pioneer at AOL, and you think about ESPN, right? It used to be in 100 million homes. Now it's in 74 million homes. It's going to be 50 million homes. Lost unit sales. That's a lot of unit sales. Lost purchase power, right? They used to be able to say, you want ESPN, you get these other things. They've gone from B to B to C, trying to go B to C, lower margins. So you have that dynamic. And then you get, you've probably done better than anybody else on the regional sports network side, but then you've got a lot of dislocation in the regional sports network. So on the national side and the local side, where does this cord cutting take us? Where are we going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now?
It's ironic on ESPN. I got ESPN online at AOL when they're part of ABC, and I was actually in the ABC offices when Cap City sold it to Disney. So I've watched the whole rollout, and the trees don't grow directly and automatically to heaven. If I were to hold any cards in the media business right now, I would say Disney is holding the best cards because of their brand and their touch with consumers and its global relevance. And what we're seeing right now locally is really driven by a number of things that I don't think the nuance of what's happened is fully understood. First, there's a lot of RSNs. I just bought my RSN from NBC Comcast. Good businesses, very profitable. We're extending our distribution. The issue is that there was a middleman in between us and the distributor. And the middleman had too good of a deal, right? They would basically pay a team $50 million a year and then charge the distributors $100 million a year. And have built in 3%, 4%, 5% accelerators every year. In a world where there was shrinkage in the subscription base, but that's not a new phenomenon. The phenomenon that was introduced was that when someone died or someone got laid off or someone got out of the cable world, it was always replaced. Well, millennials went to college. They were in a wireless world. They would move into a rental apartment, and they didn't sign up for cable. And so that replenishment on the back end of the churn, it went away. And time goes like that. And over that decade, that's why the plant has shrunk so much. Even with that, our programming as convener is the most powerful. You'd have to say it's even more powerful. With way less distribution, our ratings, let's say in the NBA, we have more people watching our games with half the distribution. That shows you how powerful the programming is. But the business model not only changed, it got broken by Diamond Sports because they bought a bunch of networks from Disney for $10 billion. Well, that would be okay, except they put $8 billion of debt on it. And a lot of lenders gave that money based on a plan that they would get renewed at increased prices, and the opposite happened. mean, that had to be the fastest change in business plan where you effectively buy something for $10 billion and then file for Chapter 11 2-3 years later. It was terrible. But the debt was bigger in payment than what they were paying the leagues for the content. So that's a backwards business model. I bought our network. We don't have any debt. It's cash flowing. It's fantastic for us to be able to say we control the IP. We announced yesterday our direct-to-consumer product. I think we have the opportunity, because we have multiple teams, to be a next-generation bundler. On the way up, I was talking to someone about Uber. Geez, look at what Uber's doing. They'll deliver your food. They'll pick up your return and bring it back to the store that you bought it. They're becoming a bundler. They're no longer just a car service replacing a taxi. You're going to see next-generation bundlers, and I think what we can be doing is selling direct-to-consumer packages that include a lot more than just our programming. And today we have the Capitals and the Wizards and the Mystics and the Go-Go and esports. I'm not shy to say I want to plan to buy a baseball team. I love the sport. There's teams in DC and Baltimore. You need year-round programming so you don't have the churn when you go direct to consumer. We should be able to, in a much more efficient way, market to subscribers and to be able to cross-promote and then to sell the advertising and the sponsorship. So I think that there's a lot of upside in bundling, and I want to put parking in there. We want to put Uber in there. We want to put food services in there. We want to put a whole bunch of other things that are central in our city as a part of that, because if you want to be the most important team, most important company, you need to be able to be central to the way people live their lives and spend their time in that community.
No, I kind of agree with that. I see a term called the lifetime value of the consumer really being the future of sports. So I do think, sports aggregates millions of people. They're engaged in ways that nobody else is. You have a local bent on it. But in the end of the day, you're going to be having a one-on-one relationship with the consumer, and you're going to be feeding them content and data and services that they like or are relevant to them, or somebody else will be doing it. I saw the other day a website by the Dallas Cowboys that had nothing to do with their licensed products, and I asked if it was run by Fanatics, and it wasn't run by Fanatics. I thought Fanatics had every right known to man, and they were selling cars and RVs and brokerage services, just like you said. So I think the future of sports might be a little bit less distribution, but targeting that passionate consumer with a new product offering that didn't exist before. That'll take a lot of change, though, because you're ahead of the curve. A lot of the teams and leagues have to build an infrastructure of marketing or have to partner with someone that's marketing. Sports before really was B2B2C. Sports of the future is really going to be B2C. And I think the people that can do that better than others are going to really distinguish themselves. Would you agree?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, I've seen early on that these are very undervalued, if you can believe it, assets. The sports teams, if done right, are like the best SaaS business models out there. When you look at some of the world's most valuable companies, the Microsofts, $2+ trillion, Oracle, $1 trillion. The reason that they're so valuable is they have ongoing, reoccurring, predictable relationships over time with the bluest chip of customers, where they increase what they're charging to that customer by price increases, but also they add seats. They're adding consumers. They're adding users. and then they're getting more data, so they're getting paid for someone to create data, and then that data helps them to inform better decision making, and frankly, sometimes creates whole new lines of business. So, I've made sure in our business model, I'll give up a price reduction on a 1-year deal. I'd rather have a 5-year deal that grows over time, that looks to the sponsor or to the suite holder like they're getting a good deal, but locks them into us and becomes predictable. And that kind of growth is just what Salesforce.com does, right? They penetrate into an account and it gets renewed all the time. We're in an even better business. We're almost 80% of our business is contracted. National media, local media, sponsorship, naming rights, suite sales. Our variable season tickets, we renew, the Capitals have sold out, for 10 years. We renew 90, 95%. Basketball, we're not as good yet. We're laggards, it's like 86%. Those are the highest renewal rates. There's no publishing industry, no publishing magazine that, shows that lack of churn. And so these are very predictable businesses. Further, they're incredibly durable. The Washington Capitals are considered a new team in the NHL. It's our 50th anniversary next year. We're newbies. When you look at the Fortune 500, the flipping in and out of Fortune 500 companies, the lifespan of a company is incredibly short. Mergers, acquisitions, bankruptcies, new growth entrants pushing you out. That's the power of the leagues. And we're also way undervalued. Joke on Sportico. Sportico came out with its rankings 3-4 years ago, I guess it was. And Adam Silver and I were the keynote speakers on the rollout of that. And Evan, who's here, said, "Mr. Commissioner, congratulations, you're CEO of a $77 million company, billion-dollar company." And I said, "How'd you come up with that?" He said, "Well, it's all 30 teams, and that comes up to $77 billion." He said, "Well, what do you think about that, Ted?" And I said, "Adam, you're fired." You mean your value in the league and the ball, the brand is just with us? You provide unbelievable value. The leagues are filled with the smartest, greatest leaders. What we're doing in media, what we're doing to help the teams locally. I'm chairman of the media committee at both the NHL and the NBA. I see it every day. I mean, the leagues may be more valuable than all of the teams collectively. So now we have to find ways to unlock that. So imagine, if you will, 10 years from now, there's a value created in the logo, in the business. Maybe it's a new media business. Maybe it's a whole new line, and that's now starting to be valued. And we own 30%, we own a 30th of that, plus what we've done locally, because my multiple is based on what we generate locally, and about half our revenues do come from national. The local debacle that's happening, we've been inoculated to it in DC for the time being. I don't want to be cocky. I mean, I know how tough it is in the local market, but let's say media is 50% of your revenues, and the local portion is, let's say, 30-40% of that 50%. So it's a big number, but if it comes out to about 20%, you can get that back through organic growth. These leagues grow 6, 7, 8% organically every year. I view that as being very important. I want to capture shares. We have to grow We have a culture, we have to grow faster than industry standards. You'll hear a lot about multiples. This is the invest in sport. I'm of a different mindset than most other owners. I'm like George, I'm in the private equity business. I have Revolution. We did investments in DraftKings and went public, and Sport Radar went public. If you price at the height on the entrance, you're going to have an unhappy journey with your investors. And so I've been unabashed with, I want great relationships with my fans, with my players, with my investors, with my partners. And you'll have in our business family and partners, and you'll have, like John was a minority partner in my enterprise, and now you'll have investors. Doc from Arctos is here. I mean, these guys wrote the book on it. They're very sophisticated investors. They really understand the sports landscape, but they're investors. They're not allowed really to be involved in the day-to-day because they own minority positions in multiple teams. And the reason we let them in is because we wanted to make sure that as a minority investor, I've owned the teams almost 25 years now. And I've had 2 partners die. Okay? And they're my friends. You feel responsible to them. And their families look to you to, how much did my husband, my partner, my dad invest? And what is it worth? And give me the money. Well, that's why we needed private equity originally to come in, to be able to help us to buy these positions. In this case, one of my partners, their family has gotten all the money back that they invested, and championship rings and parades, and what's left was $150 million. Now, we're doing well, but I didn't have $150 million laying around. So we have to bring in new investors to take their place. So we have to bring in private equity. And Doc, people at Arctos, Dial, there's a few firms that are able to do that. I didn't think there was enough. And when you see how the price has escalated, so I led an effort to try and bring in other big pools of capital into professional sports, and worked really, really hard to get pension funds and sovereign wealth funds to be able to invest, because they already were investing. If you're a private equity fund, most likely you're going to have a pension fund or a sovereign wealth fund as an LP in your fund. That's how these funds get to be $100 billion. They get passive capital from really big pools of money. And so the NBA was first, the NHL was soon thereafter. A couple of deals have been announced. We were the first group to bring in a private equity dollars, if you will, but from a sovereign wealth fund. And, you know, I think you'll see that as being very, very smart business for the leagues, because leagues will need capital to expand globally. Leagues will need capital to invest in media partners. Leagues will need capital to be able to do new stadium and facility build-outs. They might need to have ability to have some banking so that you could buy out some limited partners. There's a voracious need for capital in growth businesses like integrated sports teams and platforms. And, you know, I've been able to do that. We've raised over $1 billion in 25 years. I'm still the majority owner, the lead owner. But I treat our partners like we're pre-IPO. I respect very much other people's money. And, we have to start to think about, all of us, how will people get their money back? What will be the exit here? Well, as soon as private equity, as soon as LP started to come in, I think you'll see some public offerings. Right now, other than Liberty Media and MSG, there's not a lot of public companies, probably because there hasn't been the scale. We see our way of getting to more than $1 billion, $1.5 billion in revenues over a 5-year period, growing double digit. We could be a public company. We have predictability in our business. I'm not saying or announcing we're going public, but we will operate like a pre-IPO company, do our accounting like a pre-IPO company. These are big companies of magnitude, and we're already a public company. We have to be transparent. There's no other business in the world that's as transparent as sports teams. Our standings, our stats, you heard John talking about John Ledecky sucks. You want shareholder meetings? You want the quorum at a shareholder meeting? Just go to a hockey game. And so, everything's changed. What Sportico is doing in Invest in Sports, what people like George and Bruin are doing, these are sophisticated, really, really smart business people, really great investors. If you own a team, you'd better have a CFO who has public company experience or has worked with sophisticated investors. You'd better have a data room ready to be opened at a moment's notice. You'd better have GAAP financials. You'd better have all of the things that a company that George would buy and invest in, that Revolution would want to invest in, inculcated right into your teams. And I think investment classes like this are very, very important because that pivot is happening much faster than I think we all saw in the business of sports.
Yeah, sports is an asset class. When we started Bruin 2015, there were probably 2 or 3 investment groups in sports. And the other day, I had Scott Novak, who's here, count up all the companies. There's like 25 or 30. And so you're just seeing a huge influx of capital into sports in a way that you never saw before. I believe that you're going to see more sophistication. I think you're going to see things like structured equity, because just equity solutions sometimes are very expensive for different leagues, around the world. So I think as time goes by, you're going to see an influx of capital, and it's really going to change the game. And if you want to see a real live example of that, I think you could look to golf. You had the well-capitalized group from Saudi Arabia who had an interesting idea for a world golf league and had a capital to back a good idea and was extremely disruptive to the golf industry that was really run regionally but had really global appeal. And I don't think that golf is the only sport in the world that's run regionally that has global appeal. And I think you're going to see more and more cash and investment coming into sports and being disruptive. So I think, as Ted points out, the sophistication level that's going to come with all this investment will take sports to another whole level. I think the vast majority of it's going to be very good, but it is going to be disruptive because if you're running a league or a team, you really now have to think of yourself as a global enterprise. You have to make sure you have enough liquidity. You have to make sure you have enough capital, and you have to understand the world around you just from a defensive posture. Now, of course, others would say offensively, that capital can invest and accelerate your growth. So I think the sophistication level that's going to be coming into sports is significantly more than probably people realize. Again, 2 or 3 investment companies 8 or 9 years ago, 25 or 30 today. No better example of capital disrupting sports than what's gone on in golf. And again, I don't think golf will be the only example as time goes by. So it's going to be, I'd say, strap your seatbelt on and get ready to play, because I think it's going to be an interesting, 5 or 10 years.
and taking advantage of the demography. And, I want us to be magnanimously innovative. We were the first team to build a sports book and license to Caesars in our arena. It's been great for our fans. It's been great for the neighborhood. It's been great for us, great for the leagues. It's generated a whole new category. The media companies love it. We were leaders in my own Team Liquid, and we're really the leading sports team, esports across 11 different platforms. We've watched how dry the programming became in sports. It hasn't changed in 30 years. It's truly remarkable. And so by going digital first, we're making big, huge investments, and you're going to see we'll look more like YouTube TV locally than we will NBC Sports Washington, soon enough. But to do that, you have to make those investments. And I would say, digital first, to benefit customers first, to generate more revenues at less expense so you grow your margin. And if you do that, your multiple being able to attract investment capital will come. And, I said this when we did our last media deal. I said, it's never been a greater time, better time to own an NBA team, an NHL team. And I believe that doubly. I think that the global growth of an interest in competitiveness and gamification, the entry of the Amazons, the Apples, the Microsoft, who are global day one. They're global and digital day one. Then there's the national players, the ESPNs, the Discoveries, and then there's the local players. Well, we now have to be the local player. That's, the message that I see is that we're cutting out the middleman. We'll own the relationships locally. We want to work with all of the national players through the leagues, through the media committees and the leagues, and then the hunger from the national players. Trust me, Amazon loves their relationship with the NFL and Thursday Night Football. That's the best thing that could have happened for all the other sports. And I think that, the tree might have stopped a little bit in its growth. Smart people have to work through it. We're in kind of workout mode in a couple of places. But the opportunity over the next 10 years to really be even more important, more valuable companies is right in front of us.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Time is up. That's a wrap. Thank you.